So we're going to go ahead now and get started with our template. So we'll go over to the Bootstrap website and we're going to take their accordion example. So we're going to take the first one here. So this one doesn't allow more than one open at a time. So we'll copy that example and go back to VS Code. We will then create a div container just to hold this. And we'll go ahead and paste in our accordion. So I'm just going to collapse these item ones for a minute because there's three with the example. Now we only actually need one because we're going to be using a for loop to iterate through and create them dynamically. So we'll go ahead and create a h1 tag for the page with a class of text center and a padding 4. We'll call this monthly meal planner. And we'll also correct the title because I realised I've put in Neil Planner there, which isn't exactly what I wanted. So the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to iterate through our days. So just under the accordion example above the items, we'll create a for loop and we'll say for day in days. We will then go and make a few changes here. So we need our IDs to be unique, as you should only have one unique per page, and we won't be able to control the accordions properly if they're not connected to the correct collapsible content. So we'll change this ID for heading, and we're going to use the for loop dot counter, so each time this iterates the ID will be different. So on the button then we're just going to add the collapsed class so that it's collapsed by default when we go to the page. We're then going to change our data BS target and we're going to call this one collapse and again use our for loop dot counter. Just drop this onto the next line so that we can see what we're doing. So our area controls then is going to be our collapse and again our for loop dot counter. We'll then change the text in here, so what we want to display is our actual date, so that's going to be our day. So we're actually going to change this h2 as well, and we're just going to change this to a regular div. So we'll just format this because it's not quite sitting the way that I want it. So we're then going to change the ID of this one. So we need to coincide this for our collapse with our for loop dot counter. So that's now matching up to our controls up here. We're going to remove the show from here because we don't want this one showing by default. Our area labeled by is going to need to be changed for our heading along with our for loop dot counter. Now we're going to create a new div in here just above the accordion body. So we're going to put a lot of Bootstrap classes on this. So we're going to have deflex, we're going to have flex column, we're going to have align items center, and a padding of 2. So within here we're going to add a paragraph to say add or update meals, and then we're going to create 3 anchor links. So for each anchor link it will be to either create the breakfast, the lunch or the dinner. So we'll create an anchor here and we will give it our BTN primary, width 25 and margin bottom of 2. So we're not going to add a href just yet because we don't actually have a view to call. So we'll create this one as breakfast and we will then just duplicate this twice more, changing the middle one for lunch and the final one for dinner. So underneath this we'll add a horizontal rule and we'll go ahead now and create accordion's body. So within here, we're going to need to create another for loop. So this time we're going to be iterating through the meals. So for meal in meals, we'll go ahead and we'll end this for here. I'm going to create another if statement. So we're going to check if our meal dot meal date is equal to our day. We'll then check if our meal.recipe.meal type is equal to breakfast. We'll close off this first if statement. So within this if statement, we're going to add a h2 with a class of text center. We're going to call this breakfast. We're then going to create a div called meals. Within here, we're going to have another div called thumb, and this one's going to contain our image for our recipe. So we'll create an image tag. The source for this is going to be our meal.recipe.image.url, and we'll update the alt tag with our meal.recipe.image_alt. So underneath the thumb, we're then going to go and create the div that's going to contain the info. So we'll have our div meal-info. We'll create a h3 in here with a class of text center. Within here, we're going to create an anchor link. So this is going to lead us back to the recipe detail page. So we're going to say it's for the URL of recipe detail, and we'll pass in our parameter of meal.recipe.id. So within here, we will then show the meal.recipe.title. Underneath the h3 then, we will just create a paragraph containing our meal.recipes description. Okay, so we are actually now going to copy ahead out the breakfast one. We're going to repeat this twice. So we'll change the second one for lunch, the heading for lunch, and the third one for dinner, and again the heading for dinner. So underneath here then, we just need to create and our other if statement, and we'll count down 1, 2, 3 divs, and we will end our other for loop where we're iterating through our meals. So go ahead now and start our run server. We'll go across to our profile, our meals, and we now have an accordion here. So we have one for each day. So we're in May, so we have 31 days. And we have our buttons for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now don't worry about this line and this blank space. That's just not filled yet. We're going to have the actual meals in there. So I think if we go ahead now and go to our admin panel, we'll just create some meals. Okay, so we haven't registered the admin yet, so we'll just go ahead and do that. So we flick back to VS Code. We'll go into our admin.py and we're just going to register this. So underneath the admin import, we'll import our model. So that's our meal model. And then we're just going to say admin.site.register, and we'll put in the model name. Switching back to the live site, we'll refresh our admin panel and we'll just go ahead and create some meals in here. So we'll select a user, we'll put banana waffles in for breakfast and our meal date today. We'll then go ahead and create another meal. So same user, so we'll have our carbonara. This one can be our lunch. Again, that will be for today. And the final one is we will create a dinner. So we'll have the rice. This will be dinner today. And we'll go back to our main site. We'll go to our profile. Drop down today, which is the 7th. We can see our breakfast, we can see our lunch, but we can't actually see our dinner. So that means we have an error somewhere. So we just go back to our VS Code and have a little look why that is. So okay, so our meal type should be lowercase and I've put it uppercase for dinner. So we'll switch that one back over. Go back to the live site and just ensure that we can now see that. So we have breakfast, lunch and dinner. So now that that's working, we're going to go ahead and style these. So we'll switch back to our VS Code. We will open up our static CSS and we will create some new styles. So we'll create a comment under here just to split it off. So this is our meal planner. We're then going to style our accordion body. Just correct that typo. We're going to give this display and we're going to say flex and we're going to have the flex direction of a column. We will then go ahead and style our accordion button. We'll give this a font size of 1.5 rem. We'll give it a font weight of 500, just to bold it a small bit. We'll give it a margin of 0. We're then going to target our meals div. We're going to say display flex. Flex direction is also a column. We'll have justify content center and align items center so that everything is horizontally and vertically aligned. Last thing we're going to do is target our H3 anchors so that we can text align these to the center. We can remove the text decoration with text decoration none. And finally, we're going to give this a font weight of 700. We'll switch back to the live site. We'll go back and we'll have a little look. So, okay, no styling. So we'll just switch back to VS Code for a second. I've forgotten a style, so we'll target the thumb image and just give that a width of 100% to ensure our images scale. So I'm actually going to stop the run server now, and I'm just going to restart it because sometimes when you change the base CSS file, it doesn't always update. So fixing it sometimes happens with a restart. So we'll go ahead back to the live site and just give it a quick refresh and go and check. So now everything's there. We'll double check those images are also responsive now. That's fine, or scaling. So this concludes the meal planner page. So the next one we're going to complete is the actual selecting the meals.